Welcome back. As you know, I'm Eli the Computer Guy here for the Daily Blob to remind you in these trying economic times, everything is fine until your boss changes your coffee distributor from being Starbucks to that gold lion stuff that they sell. I've talked about that, so I've been through a couple of economic kerfuffles at this point. I've seen the dot-com bubble burst. I've seen the Great Recession, and basically you're going along with your business. Everything seems to be fine. You're not seeing layoffs yet. You're not seeing significant cuts yet. Everything is just going along fine until you go into the coffee room. You go to grab a bag of coffee so you can make a pot of coffee, and when you reach your hand into the box and you pull your hand out, you see a bag of coffee, and it's a gold bag and it has this little lion face on it. And that's when you realize everything is about to get real, right? When your company starts worrying about the cost of bags of coffee, that's when there are larger problems on the horizon. And so that is just one of my warnings for you all, right? Because a lot of times people think like the canary in the coal mine is going to be the layoffs or maybe cutting salaries or that types of things. Really what you need to be looking for is when do your bosses need to actually start cutting costs? And when does it seem like they start cutting costs in places that shouldn't be that significant, right? So if you lay off people, right? If you lay off 2 or 3 people, that's got to scare the shit out of everybody else in the company. Layoffs are here, right? So bosses don't want to do that, right? You know, if they consolidate facilities, again, people are going to get more cramped, right? You get more cramped in a facility, then that's going to make you feel like things aren't going economically well for the business. So what the bosses can do is they can look at these kind of like edge cases, right? If you've had three-ply toilet paper, all of a sudden the toilet paper seems a little scratchier. You go from 3-ply to 2-ply. Or if it's bad, you go from 3-ply to 1-ply. Like you have never thought about your ass before. Normally you go to work, you take a crap, you wipe your butt, you just go about your day. You've never thought about your butthole at work before. But all of a sudden you realize, oh, this is like the second day in a row. My bunghole feels itchy for some reason. Why? Because you went from the good toilet paper to the bad toilet. But that's the thing, is it doesn't trigger you. Like when you're sitting there and you're looking at the toilet paper, you're like, oh, that might be a little bit different. Right? Oh, maybe they went to a different vendor. Oh, maybe they got a bad batch. Whatever. Like it's like you're like, oh, this is worth toilet paper. But you're not gonna get scared. Right? Again, the same thing as with coffee. Right? Until you understand, right? So they're sitting there looking at Starbucks, right? So they go out, they get the Starbucks coffee, whatever your coffee is nowadays, some local roasted brand or whatever that's supposed to be the best. And they look at that, right? That's costing a couple $1,000s a month. They're like, okay, it's a few $1,000s a month to buy the coffee for this office, right? If we go down to the Lion coffee, that's only going to cost us $1,000 a month, right? We can save $2,000 or $3,000 a month, and this is real. Like when you start thinking about how many people are in an office, how much coffee they drink during a day, shit adds up, right? So we can go from spending like $3,000 or $4,000 a month on coffee to $1,000 a month on coffee. That gets us $3,000. That's $3,000 of breathing space we didn't have simply for changing the coffee. And you go in and you get the new coffee. And again, you're going to kind of bitch about it, kind of complain about it, but you're not going to think the sky is falling. You're just like, that's weird. You've got different coffee. Well, the reason you have different coffee, and the reason you have different toilet paper, and the reason there's going to be these other things out there is because your bosses are now very, very concerned about money. Right? They, for whatever reason, now is the time they realize, oh, profit and loss statements actually matter. And so this is just one of those things to kind of keep your eye on. And that's why I find interesting with this particular story. It's about Google. It's about Google pulling out the Lion coffee, right? I talk about Lion coffee and it's some like local development company with like 50 people. You're like, yeah, who cares? Well, what happens when Google pulls out the Lion coffee? Is this when we as a society collectively shit our pants? Maybe. So from TechCrunch, not a lot to the story. This isn't kidding around. Google isn't kidding around about cost cutting, even slashing its Financial Times subscription. Right? So a lot of these businesses, they just splurge on things, right? Making sure their employees are in the know. So Financial Times has an enterprise edition companies can purchase so that all of their employees, or a huge number of employees, can get the Financial Times every day. So Financial Times, like the Wall Street Journal, that type of thing. It's just a news publication. And so if you want your employees caught up in what's going on with world events, you get the Financial Times Enterprise edition, which is going to cost, a few $1,000s a month, right? Now here's the interesting thing, right? For Google, who the fuck cares? As I've talked about before, with tech companies, and especially major tech companies, a few $1,000s, it doesn't matter. It so doesn't matter. It just does not give a shit about, right? And so what's interesting is what happens when Google starts caring about a few $1,000s. Is this showing us problems with what's going on with the economy? I've been talking about that with the economy lately, where we are in an economic kerfuffle, right? Under Biden, look, it's not one president. Under Biden, under Trump, the economy is going sideways, right? You look at certain, it's weird. It's like Tesla is at all-time highs. Like the stock market is near all-time highs as more and more people can't afford food. Right? It's been what's called a K-shaped recovery. Haven't you heard we've had a recovery? It's K-shaped. As in the richer are getting richer and the poorer are getting poorer. And as I've said many times, that's not a recovery, assholes. That's just not a recovery. But anyway, we've been having like a lot of these weird things where the stock market is up, as people are having harder times, being able to buy houses and afford things. Again, you can see, you go to the store and you intrinsically know things are getting more expensive. At the exact same time, we're told inflation is under control. Right? There's all these tariffs and everything, going on with the Trump administration, all these diktats that are going out there. But at the exact same time, again, we're told that the economy is doing better than ever. And it's that weirdness that we currently have, where it's like just trying to understand where we are at, because this is going to be, a big decision point for you, right? Do you buy a new house? Do you buy a new car? Let's say you have a car. Let's say you have a car and it's like 5 years old. So you've had the car, you've had it for 5 years. It's still a fine car, but it's 5 years old. Look, you make $150,000 a year or more. You can afford a new car. So you're like, maybe it's time that I go out and buy a new car. Right? If you know the economy is going sideways, if you know that the economy is going sideways, if you know there's a good chance you could be laid off in the next year, right? Buying a new car probably isn't going to be a priority. Look, your car is 5 years old. It's a modern car. It'll last another 5 years, right? It'll get you to the 10-year mark, right? 5 years from now, the recession will be over with, right? Recessions come and recessions go. So look, if you're worried about losing your job, right? Keep the car you have. The recession comes. Maybe you keep your job. Maybe you lose your job. But within 3 years, all of this should be in the past, hopefully. And then when it's in the past and we are in the next bull cycle, then that's when you go and you buy the car. Again, if you're looking at buying a house, you have a house, you can already afford the mortgage and all that kind of stuff, but you'd like an extra whatever. Do you do the mortgage now, or do you wait a couple of years to figure out what's going on? Do you move? Do you do this? Do you do that? Right? That's why it's important to try to figure out what's going on economically, because the thing to understand is that it's always a bet. It's always a bet. There's this idea, right? The kids out there, they have this idea. Eli, I did what I was told to do. I was told if I do X, Y, and Z, I will be successful. It's like, who the fuck told you that? That's fucking stupid, right? Nobody can tell you that. Nobody truly understands what everything is going to look like in 10 years. Not just in technology and other things, right? It is always a bet. I had a buddy of mine during the Great Recession, right? He got laid off. So he was, it was interesting. He was with a construction company. So he was with a really large construction company. And he wanted to move up. He wanted to move up in the construction company. And so one of the things, and with a lot of companies, is that you have to have sales experience. experience, right? If you want to go up to the executive, you want to go up to the managers, right? You may have the construction and all that kind of experience, but you need to have the sales experience. You need to understand how that sales process works, value propositions and that type of thing, right? And so anyways, right? It was before the Great Recession. He was like, I really like this company. I really want to move up the whole 9 yards. So he went from the construction. He went from building stuff. He went over to sales, right? Because he was moving on. He was moving on up. He went over to sales. The Great Recession hit. They didn't need to sell shit anymore. They laid off the entire sales department, right? That was a bet. He lost that bet, right? The construction people, curiously enough, they kept the construction people for a really long time because they wanted to keep inventory, right? You can't sell everything if you don't have inventory. So if you're not selling anything, you get rid of the salespeople, you keep the construction people building so that when the economy gets better, you rehire salespeople and you have something to sell them. So actually, the construction people, the job he had been in actually had relatively good job security through the Great Recession because they kept building. When he moved over to the new position, he got eliminated. And it's important to understand that. That's the risk in our system. A capitalistic system has an enormous amount of risk. Is capitalism good or bad? I don't know. As an old white man once told me, Eli, I'm not telling you it's a good system. Eli, I'm telling you it's a system that we have. So anyways, I think this is interesting from Google, and just to show you, be careful, because I don't think a lot of people are careful. I think a lot of people, I don't know, it's this weird, it's like we have this it's like a mix of Pollyanna-ishism and catastrophism at the exact same time. Like there's this idea the world is gonna end, but I'm gonna be pretty fine. It's like this weird, dude, I don't understand people anymore. Eli, you don't understand? No, I do not understand. Anyway, you know what I'm saying? Like there's this weird, anyways. Google is ending its enterprise subscription to the Financial Times, and it's not the only enterprise media subscription on the chopping block, sources say. The cuts reflect broader cost reduction efforts at the search giant, even as the company reports strong financial performance. So think about this, right? Google is showing strong financial performance, and they're chopping things like the subscriptions to the Financial Times. So even as though they show good financial performance, they're starting to cut the smaller costs. Google has been implementing cost reductions across 2025, including eliminating 35% of managers who oversees teams of three people or fewer, and offering voluntary exit programs across multiple divisions since January. Finance chief Anat Ashkenazi signaled late last year that the company would continue to push cost cuts, quote, a little further, and mandate that appears unchanged despite Alphabet's reported strong Q2 2025 results, with a $96.4 billion in revenue. So they got $96 billion in revenue, but they're cutting the small expenses. That would make me particularly nervous if I was working at Google. That would make me particularly nervous if I was working at any of these technology companies, basically with the concept of what are they planning for, right? I talk about that a lot. Like, I don't care what people say. Like, I'm so fucking tired of what people say. People just talk, right? Here's the thing. You can say whatever you want. Anybody can say whatever you want, right? You got all these tech CEOs, and they're groveling to Trump, kissing his ring, slobbering over his ring, talking about how amazing he is as a president. But then you start looking at what their actual actions are. What their actions are is what really matters. That shows you what they really think, right? You can say whatever you want about the economy, but when you start making these cuts to relatively small expenses, that's when it kind of shows maybe you're far more concerned about what's going on economically than you're willing to say, right? Look at what the bosses are doing. Look at where they're changing things. Look at the cost cutting that they're actually doing, and think about why it is they're doing it. So anyways, that is just a long-winded way to talk about 3 sentences about Google cutting a Financial Times subscription. So what do you think about this? What do you think about Google starting to cut things like these Financial Times subscriptions. Have you started to see this in your technology company where they've started to cut costs just kind of at the edges in the places where, they don't think you'll care about it that much. You might recognize it. You might not even notice it, right? But even if you do recognize it, you probably won't bitch that much, or maybe they'll be able to explain it away, right? You go into the boss's office. What the fuck's going on with the toilet paper? Oh, yeah, we just got a bad order of toilet paper this time. Don't worry, once we run through this order of toilet paper, we'll be back to the next, the better toilet paper. And then somehow, for some reason, that particular order of toilet paper will last for a year. Yeah, we just bought a year's worth of shitty toilet paper. Yeah, don't worry, we just got to burn through all of that toilet paper first. And then we get the good stuff again. Are you starting to see that in your companies? Put your thoughts down below. Give us a thumbs up, give us a thumbs down. Call me amazing, call me a moron. Just be a big dog, an alpha dog, and do it down there in the comments section. Do you remember SiliconDojo.com exists? We are having our first class in a long time in Durham, North Carolina, a place called American Underground. In the next couple of weeks, we're going to be talking about AI, LLMs, Olama, that type of stuff. If you're interested in that, make sure to join SiliconDojo.com. We are having a fireside chat with the founder of a $2 billion cybersecurity company. So that should be pretty interesting. That's coming up. So if you're interested in any of that, you can join SiliconDojo.com, and it's all free to the end user. So you can just simply, get educated. That's all I got to say. See y'all later.